Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake and the Doc coming back at you today to talk about a few prospects from the recent NFL draft. Ethan, a lot of people have questions about some of the guys that slightly fell or enormously fell in the NFL draft, and a lot of this kind of has to do with a little bit of injury history. So when there's injury history to talk about, you better believe the Doc will be in the house.
I'm here, Jake. This is like my number one thing. I'm
it's
ready.
Like
Everyone
signal.
complains when I'm talking about fantasy football, which is ridiculous because I'm pretty good at that too. But I'm here for injuries for you,
That's
Jake.
Right. Technically, if you didn't know anything about injuries, you probably wouldn't be here.
I think that is very much the truth. I provide mostly injury content. That is my niche. But see, the thing is I don't pretend like that isn't the niche. Some people try to lean away from their niche. This is my thing. I'm here for it. I will make you a better fantasy player by understanding the injury part of it. And that's
perfect. That's absolutely right. And that's what we're going to do today. So we got 5 players we're going to talk about who slid in some form or fashion during the 2022 NFL draft. Do us a favor, hit that like button before we get started, because the first one we're going to be talking about is a quarterback that actually I saw him at the combine and I was kind of like, not all that bad. Carson Strong went undrafted. After he went undrafted, he was picked up and signed by the Eagles. But Carson Strong is a big-armed quarterback that I kind of expected to land somewhere at some point in the draft.
Yeah, I agree. I thought a team would take a chance on him. I'm not surprised that they didn't, but I was a little bit just in once we got to the 7th round and we're taking guys I've never heard of, I felt like Carson Strong was going to get a shot somewhere. But he didn't get drafted, and it's almost entirely, mostly, definitely due to his right knee. So he has a condition, osteochondritis dissecans.
Why can't you all come up with easier names?
I know.
Dude.
Well, so it's where the bone and cartilage meet in your knee. Basically, his is in high school, he was diagnosed with this. He was having knee pain, and it's where essentially the cartilage starts to unattach itself from the bone, and it starts to kind of come off the bone. And so what they did when he was in high school is they drilled in 8 degradable screws to try to hold it back in place and hope that it would heal itself. The problem is that he's had 2 other surgeries since then on this knee, and so with 3 surgeries, same knee, 2 of those were in the last year. In 2021, he had one in surgery in February and then again in August. And it's just, this is a condition, and it's not, it sucks because it's not really his fault. This isn't something that he got injured playing football. It's just a condition that he has.
The birth defect.
It's kind of. I mean, it's just a condition. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. And he's had 3 surgeries on this knee, and it's a condition that isn't really getting better, apparently, based on the surgeries he's had. And teams are going to look at that and go, hey, look, man, we don't trust that this is going to get better. We know that you're somewhat talented, but unless you're basically a perfect prospect outside of that, teams are not going to invest in even bringing you into the quarterback room and spending draft capital on you. They're just not going to. He did manage to sign his undrafted free agent with the Eagles. So I guess, they might, I think he's got a chance to maybe earn a spot as a 3rd quarterback on the Eagles squad, but it's a shame because sometimes these medicals, it's nothing that the guy can control. It's not like he got hurt playing football. This is just something he was born with.
Did you know that I have a birth defect?
Do I want to know about your birth defect, Jake?
It's also in my knee. In my knees, plural.
What is?
And I'm not even joking. I don't know what the name
real defect.
This is a 100% real defect.
And it's actually not a birth defect. Somebody in the comments is gonna be like, "This isn't a birth defect."
I know that was just my lack
when
of.
He was developed when he was in high school.
That's my lack of doctor knowledge, calling it a birth defect. But what mine is, so apparently your kneecap sits in like a cup, right? It's like a little type of cup.
Yes.
Mine is flat.
Yeah.
Mine is flat. So
Got a
my
flat knee.
kneecap and that whatever that
Prone
bone
to
is, they just
dislocation.
wait. They what?
Yeah, you'd be more prone to a patella dislocation.
Maybe,
Kneecap
and I
dislocation.
have torn my meniscus and all the cartilage in both of my knees because the bones continually rub.
You know what they call that? Being an old man.
That's exactly right. I wake up in pain sometimes, but you know
I
what?
think we all do at this age.
I endure, Ethan. Adapt and overcome. All right, next name. Enough about me. How about this? Maybe caught a lot of people by surprise, being the fact that he went undrafted and is still undrafted at the time of this recording. Justin Ross, wide receiver of Clemson. I think everybody kind of knew that he was going to slide down draft boards, completely go undrafted, and then not even be picked up after the draft is a little bit puzzling, I know, for a lot of people.
Yeah, as of this recording, hasn't been picked up yet. So we just want to preface with that in case he does, hopefully he'd sign somewhere. Yeah, this is really a fall from grace, because when he was playing with Trevor Lawrence as a true freshman at Clemson, there was legitimate Justin Ross is the best wide receiver in this class talk.
Yep.
And so he's got his injury history is predicated mostly by the congenital fusion. We talked about it when he got cleared to play again for Headliner U. So if you get a chance, you can go watch that video over on the Headliner U channel. But Justin Ross, born with this defect, had a congenital fusion in his neck. He had surgery for it. Clemson cleared him to play, but that doesn't mean that the NFL thinks he should be playing. And so what we're seeing here with this is it's almost entirely due to his neck. He has some other stuff in his history, an ACL tear in high school. There's other things to be concerned about. He's been hurt often, but this one, the neck thing, is the thing that I think is keeping him totally off of teams' boards. And it seems like teams aren't even willing to take a chance on him as an undrafted free agent. Which means his medicals either did not come back clean at all. It makes me question, like, Clemson's staff, were they doing him a favor by letting him play? Were they putting him at a ton of risk by letting him play? If the NFL doctors aren't clearing him and they're not picking him up as an undrafted free agent, that is definitely a concern that maybe he's got something so wrong that they're like, look, dude, we are not risking the liability of you, getting hurt and getting majorly hurt.
Yep.
By playing for us. We're not going to pay you to get hurt and then have to be on the hook for potentially really life-altering medical conditions, down the road. So I don't blame teams for not wanting to take that risk. I think it's unfair for people on Twitter, just in the mainstream, to question Justin Ross's the other parts. This is 100% due to his neck. The kid is talented. He had no control over the fact that he was born with this thing, and that sucks, but it also makes sense when you think about it from a business perspective.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part, I think, sometimes is, trying to separate the two of them and really trying to figure out what is the actual reason. 100% dude is talented for sure. Now, another guy, this slide, this was weird to me, and I even text you on Twitter. I'm like, dude, I don't understand, because Nakobe Dean fell all the way to the Eagles at 83 overall. Now, David Ojabo, who has a torn Achilles, was drafted before this dude. And I look at, on paper, obviously I'm not a doctor here, the injuries that Nakobe Dean had. And to me, it's like, I would gladly spend an earlier draft pick than 83rd overall on a guy who has some injuries, who may miss a little bit of time, but could definitely be a huge benefit to my team going forward, even if he has to miss a couple games.
Yeah, it's odd, Jake, but I think it really comes down to, again, this is a job interview. This pre-draft process is a job interview. And the way that I understand it now, and of course at the time, it wasn't really reported well, because I don't think Nakobe Dean's camp wanted, the public to really know how bad this pec injury was, but he hurt his pec while he was bench pressing. The pec is, obviously, most people know, it's the booby muscle. And typically when you hurt a pec, strain a pec, bench pressing, it's one of two things. Either it's really sore or it's completely torn. And it sounds like now we're finding out, they were saying, oh, it's just, it's just strained. he's going to do some steroid injections. He's going to do some stem cell injections. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And that's what they were telling teams in the pre-draft process. And then the team's medical staffs were going, no, this guy needs to have surgery to repair his pec. He has a complete tear or near complete tear. It's only going to get better if he has surgery. He needs to have the surgery. And this is where his slide is different from your average slide. You know, the first two we talked about, those are conditions that aren't really going to change much.
Right.
And so teams are not going to take the risk. Nakobe Dean's slide has less to do with the injury and more to do with, I think, how he is approaching it in the pre-draft process. Teams were telling him, at least my understanding is, teams were telling him, you need surgery. And he was telling them, I'm not going to get surgery. And so, again, in a job interview, if you tell a prospective employee that you're going to pay millions of dollars, hey, we need you to do this thing before we hire you, and you say, no, I'm going to do my own thing, they're not going to like that. You know, this is the business side of it again. And so I think that's why he fell. Again, if he ends up needing surgery, it is a length of recovery. We're looking at somewhere between 5 to 7 months of recovery before he's at 100%. He did have a labrum tear that he got repaired last off season. So it's not the first injury he's had, but I do think this is more a situation where Nakobe Dean during this process was not open to the idea of getting surgery, and teams wanted him to be, and he failed the interviews essentially. I think it has less to do with the actual severity of the injury itself.
Perfect. Well, I mean, you've seen here throughout the show so far, we've thrown up a couple graphics. Obviously, that's from Ethan's injury rookie guide that he's just now releasing. Tons and tons. How many players are in this guide, Ethan?
Over 100. I think we're at like 110, maybe.
So 110 player profiles. And Ethan's going back to like elementary school these days. He's just going back and finding whatever he can on all of these guys. So if you're interested, make sure you head over to the fantasyheadliners.com. It's available right there on the homepage. Get yourself all that information, because we got two more guys with some big time name recognition. I guess you could say two wide receivers that I know a lot of people kind of have questions about. The first one being Treylen Burks. Now, a lot of people are like, Jake, he was still a first round pick. He didn't really slide. But when you look at the wide receivers that went before him, I believe Jahan Dotson went before him.
He did.
I was not expecting something like that to happen. So obviously he fell into a pretty good situation on a team in which he's going to get some decent volume. But Treylen Burks is another guy who did slide a little bit in the draft.
He did. And I think under normal circumstances, you know, the draft capital, if you just look at the draft position on paper, you say, well, he didn't slide at all. He's still, you know, mid first round. Heck,
overall,
they traded AJ Brown just so they could turn around and draft this guy. So how bad can it really be? But I think the key is that there were 5 other NFL teams that needed a wide receiver that had other guys ranked ahead of Treylen Burks. And so when you consider that 5 other dudes, either this is just an incredible wide receiver class, which I think it might be, you know, there's a lot of talent at wide receiver. That could be the case, but it also could be that teams were a little concerned. Treylen Burks, not the cleanest prospect in the world from a health perspective. He had an ACL tear in high school. He's kind of been banged up since then. He actually had 2 injuries in high school. So his history in the rookie injury guide goes all the way back to 2016. So this is a guy who gets banged up a little bit. The rest of the guys taken in the first round outside of Jamison Williams didn't really have any major injury concerns. And so teams are going to look at that kind of stuff. And I think that in fantasy and in dynasty, if you're thinking he's going to walk in and just be AJ Brown from the start, I think maybe temper expectations a little bit.
Don't forget about Bobby Trees.
Don't forget about Bobby Trees.
Never. I mean, did you see that during the draft? I mean, I'm sure you did. The guy had a Bobby Trees jersey on. I don't remember who it was. It actually said Trees on the back, and I felt sick to my stomach, Ethan.
Yeah.
I felt sick.
That could have been you, Jake.
Dude, I created that nickname years and years ago. And did I do anything with it? Did I trademark it? No. Do I get credit for anything? No. Does everybody use it? Yes.
Possibly.
Damn it. All right, anyway. Jake. Let's talk about a Steeler, because I know you're a Steelers fan.
Oh, finally.
That's right. And so I know you're a Steelers fan, and I have mixed emotions about this draft pick right here for the Steelers is George Pickens. Now, obviously, George Pickens, pretty talented wide receiver, has a little bit of an injury past, which you'll cover here in a second, but I don't really understand at that point why the Steelers needed George Pickens. And then they just went on to get more wide receivers. It was just a weird draft overall after they overdrafted a quarterback, but I get it. They didn't know at that time that every other quarterback was going to slide multiple rounds. So George Pickens, what do you see surrounding him in the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, Pickens, this is one where I think some people, from what I'm reading, are misinterpreting why he slid. I've had a few people reach out and say, is this all due to the ACL tear? He tore his ACL last March. He did actually manage to return for Georgia by the end of the season. So a pretty quick turnaround. I don't think that this slide has as much to do with his injury. Outside of that ACL, he hasn't really had much going on, especially, at least major. I think this has more to do with some reports that we got as the draft was going on, that maybe he isn't the easiest guy to work with. Maybe not the nicest dude to talk to, maybe not the best interview. And I think that when you combine poor interviews with, maybe a little bit of injury risk, not a ton, but he did have an ACL. He's not he's not even a full, he's barely a full year, I guess, out from that. Maybe teams were worried about the ACL. I don't think so. I think it has more to do with he's just kind of got a little bit of that wide receiver.
He's a little diva-ish.
Yeah, he's a little diva-ish, I think.
Well, I guess if there's a franchise that can handle diva wide receivers, it would probably be Pittsburgh.
We are kind of making that our name for ourselves. And I don't know if the Steelers really needed a wide receiver here. I question just team building perspective. Like, did we really need another wide receiver? I guess we'll see, but I do think that Pickens is talented. I think this slide has a lot more to do with just his inability to interview well, as opposed to just being, injury concerns.
I mean, I just see Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, now George Pickens. Do we have Kenny Pickett starting week 1, Mitchell Trubisky in the mix? Can they supply all of these guys? I mean, didn't even mention Pat Freiermuth or Najee Harris. I mean, I just don't. That's where I just said I like the player. I just didn't really understand the pick because it didn't really seem like a need for me there in Pittsburgh. But we'll find out. They turn out a bunch of stud wide receivers, it seems, on a yearly basis. So maybe they just don't want to pay Claypool or Deontay Johnson coming up, and this is going to be the future replacements. Who knows? If anybody's going to know, you're a Steelers fan. Maybe you can tell us at some point in the future.
I'm still mostly concerned about their offensive line.
You probably should be. That's probably a valid concern at this point.
Doesn't matter how many weapons you have. If the offensive line cannot protect whoever is quarterbacking,
yes,
it's not going to go out very well.
No, it's going to be an issue. But there's obviously a lot of players in the NFL draft that had a lot of injury concerns. Once again, head over to thefantasyheadliners.com. There's a link down below in the description. Get yourself the rookie injury guide. Ethan will make sure you are taken care of on all these incoming rookies and their past injury histories, so you can make the best choice possible for all your dynasty leagues. But Ethan, we're going to go ahead and get out of here for the day. Appreciate you taking some time.
Well,
you got more,
Jake.
What do you got?
What
do you got?
I think I want to give something away.
Whoa.
Hey,
you didn't clear this first.
I'm sorry. It's my guide. I can give it away if I want to.
Well, fine.
Okay. I'm going to need you to hit the like button.
Okay.
Shoot me a comment. Okay. On this video, let me know who you're the most concerned about from an injury perspective in the comments. Whichever one I like the most, free guide.
Should we set like some type of like goal on the video for you to do it or no?
No.
Okay.
No,
well,
I'm just going to pick one. Obviously like the video.
Yeah, you should like the video.
Share it with your friends, but
yeah,
give me a comment. I want to hear I want to hear what you want to say.
Perfect. There you go. The Doc's going to give away a free rookie injury guide to somebody who leaves a comment down below. So do us a favor, hit that like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't, because we got you covered in every certain angle that you could possibly think of when it comes to fantasy football. But for now, hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, a great week, and we'll talk to you later.